Hello! So we are going to work our way through the plan review document. This could take a little while, so get yourself a nice hot drink or something and kind of enjoy this process. I think the best procedure would be I'll sort of go through line by line the way I would in an actual setting, period. And by the way, I'm available if you've got a plan and you're about to build something and you want me to actually go through your plan for you. I can do that, and you just charge for a couple hours of my time. So I'll leave a link so you can contact me directly if you're interested in availing yourself of that service. And so let's have a look. So first thing we want to take a look at is where the house is placed on the lot. So the plot plan. And our helpful tip pointers says look at grading points, swale location, general slope of the lot. So I've got a plan or a plot plan that I pulled from our archive that is a good example to work with. So here we go. So this document is always prepared by a professional surveyor, and that's vitally important. This is not something you do on the back of a napkin because there's a lot of stuff here that is super important. And in many cases, if you're in a subdivision that has been produced by a big developer and a big municipality, this plot plan will be law. It's not something you can really play around with. They will have set the grades, they will have set the slopes. In a master plan neighborhood, you have virtually no control over that, but you must conform to it. And so you have to be aware of what it is so you can get your project to fit and nestle in there the way you want. So our first assignment is just to look at the general slopes. So what we've got is these ovals. Now we are in Canada, so by law a lot of this material comes in metric. So you have to do some conversions if you want to see the imperial side of things. But in metric, here we are. So this is 83.97. That's basically an elevation above sea level. And here's another one here, 83.56. So there's a differential between the two. This is this land's higher than this land. And it's about half a meter difference. Translates to, let's say, 18 inches of difference. So this front corner is higher than this front right corner. So okay, good to know as we think about this. That could have implications for how this driveway is going to be. You might end up with a scenario where the exposed edge of the driveway here is a bit higher than here. You got to think about how you're going to do that. So it's good to have this awareness. Then we'll see these little arrows, and the arrows are cool. And what they're showing you is the direction that water is supposed to flow. Water flows this way. Water flows this way. This way. That's awesome because that's what you want. You want the water to flow away from your house. There's even some building code requirements in that regard. And we can see that more graphically here because here we have elevation of 84.42. So that is higher ground than here. How much higher? Oh, about half a meter, so about 18 inches. So that's interesting. So at a glance, it looks like your driveway is going to move upwards about 18 inches. So from the sidewalk till you hit the front of your garage, your slope is about 18 inches up. So now you know some things. So now you got to consider, does this work for me? Do I have a scenario where that slope might be too high? Do I have to think about that? Maybe not, but it's just good for awareness. Then as we continue to follow the lot, we see that we are dropping down. So we're 84.42 here, we're 82 here. So that's a good 2.25 meters, 6, 7, 8 feet down for quick translations. That's quite a lot. You got a hill. This lot's on a hill. And that's probably good because we're going to make a walkout basement here, so that's really, and it continues to go down. So as you get to the back, 81.56, 81.4. So yeah, we're definitely sloping downhill on the back of this lot, which is great. So that's kind of our general look at this lot. Now, if you've bought this property or if you bought a property of your own, just by driving by, you can get some of this, but it's not always safe to rely on that. And the reason is, depending how your land developer is, he may have not left the lot completely accurate because he knows there's going to be a house built on there, a lot of commotion is going to happen. Why? why spend the effort to make this lot accurate right to the last inch when it's going to be all messed up anyway? So it falls to the builder after the home is built to correct the lot and get it to the level that it's supposed to be. So a drive-by may not be a completely accurate way. You'll probably get a sense of it, but for complete accuracy, you have to look at these plot plans to understand what is really going on. Okay, back to the plan review. So basically, that's kind of our first point, general look at this. Second point, check building heights against zoning maximum to midpoint of roof from four corners. Every municipality has its own little rules in this regard, and different parts of town may have different zoning rules, and you need to know what those are, or your builder does. And so in this particular neighborhood, what we have to do is take a look at things like, we basically are asked to take an average of these four corners, what their heights are, and then analyze the height of the building. And we may have that information on the plot plan, or we might have to look to the actual drawings, which we'll just skip to. And drawings will have lots of information on them, which we're going to be going through in some detail here. But one thing you'll be able to see somewhere on the drawing is how high the roof really is. So you calculate a height for that, and then you take a look back at your plot plan and get the average heights of the four corners, and that's going to give you kind of a 0 mark, and then from there the height of your building. So now you have the total differential between those. Once you know that differential, you got to compare that against the zoning bylaw. Zoning bylaw might say, hey, you can only be blah 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 feet above the ground, that's it. So in some cases that might mean, and it's happened to most builders, it might mean that you're going to be dropping that roof down. Maybe you might choose to sink the basement deeper into the ground. If there's a basement, there's things you can do to make your home comply better to the zoning bylaw. But nothing's worse than sending your plans into the city to have their plans examiner go, hey, it's too high. What you drew is too high for this. We're setting it back, and you're going to have to fix that. You don't want to have to endure that. It's better to catch it up front. So again, we've got awareness of that stuff. So that's great. So let's have a look back to this then. Third point. In case of a walkout, sump at rear of foundation. What in the world is that all about? Okay, so what that's talking about is the location of your sump pump within the house if you have a basement. And I realize not everybody has basements, but here we have a drawing for a basement. And in the case of a walkout, we want to be able to catch water that's way back there without having to pump awkwardly and uphill. So where possible, we try to get the sump pump located near the back of the house. It doesn't always work. It's just an awareness thing and an analysis of how you're going to collect water that may gather around the house and in the foundation and under the foundation and pump it out. Foundation elevation. How high out of the ground is this house? So the plot plan will give you some information. So here we go. So finished floor 85.2. That's interesting. So again, if we look at some of our little grade marks here, so 83.9, so call that 84. 85.2. So it looks like the main floor of the house is about 1.2 meters higher than this corner. So maybe you like that, and maybe you don't. It's good to be aware of what that is. What that means is, here we go, finished grade front. Oh, you're going to have 4 steps to the front door. Maybe that's fine. Maybe, but now 4 steps passes the threshold within which you now have to have some kind of railing on your front step. Maybe you didn't buy railing, or maybe you haven't thought of what that railing might look like, but here you're going to have it because building code's going to make you have it because you're 4 risers up. So that's a thing. Maybe you just hate railing. You have a pathological hatred of railing. You want this really open thing. You don't want to have all these steps. Okay, so you got choices. You can now choose to drop the house down. So back to drafting, get them to sink the house lower. All these numbers will change. But at least now you are a knowledgeable consumer. You're empowered. You know what's going on. your 4 risers out. Finished grade at the back, 81.8, way lower than the front, and that's because it's a walkout. Oh, here we go. Bottom of back door sill, 81.95, it's a walkout. Wait a second, what is this all about? Finished grade back, 81.8, bottom back door sill, 81.95. So about a small differential there, and that's a good move. In many cases, this is a wise move because it means that your back door is up just a little from the grade at the back. Again, trying to get water to flow away from the house. So there we are. Okay, cool stuff. There's stuff here that relates to what the contractors will do when they're doing your foundation. They need to know some of this stuff. It's all there to be had on this amazing, amazing document. Okay, we're cruising. So sewer invert. Do we have the correct slope at 6%? Sewer invert. Very important. Let's have a look at this. So what this is all about, this relates to wastewater within the house. And remember, this house has a basement as well, so there could be bathrooms down in the basement. Wastewater within the house needs to flow easily to the sewer lines in the street. And so we always have this information given to us. Not always. Looks like in this case we don't have the data. This can happen sometimes, where a street is old and we don't have data on where the sewer really is. If we do have it, it'd be here on this line, and then we could do a calculation because we know how deep the house is, we would know how deep the sewer is, are we getting a good flow? Here we don't have this information. It's going to be more, honestly, it's a warning sign. You and your builder are going to have to be just mentally alert here, because one of the first things that will happen is we're going to discover where that sewer is, and we are going to hope that it's deep enough to accommodate the slope that we need. Now, you're building on a slab, you live in Arizona, they don't do basements, you are not going to have a problem. Your sewer is going to be whatever, I don't know how deep they go in Arizona, 4 or 5 feet, something like that. You're going to have, it's going to be easy. Life is so easy when you have no frost and no basements. Here in the frozen north, less fun. So what we have here is a situation of a city that's been around for a couple hundred years, and some of our streets are pretty old. And in some cases what that has meant is that the sewer lines weren't buried that deep. Why? Because back in 1930, people did not do super deep basements, gosh, 5, 6 feet, whatever, below the ground, not super deep. And it was very easy to get that slope, no sense digging too deep. Nowadays, folks like to have deep basements. 8 foot is not even a thing. Almost everybody goes 9 feet. Some people go 10 feet. We're super deep. So when you're being daring like that and going deep, you have to be aware of where the sewer is so that your wastewater will flow into it. Again, just an awareness thing for a professional to handle. And once in a blue moon, you hit a situation where the sewer is not going to cooperate. It's too high, so what does that mean? You're going to have to adjust that basement and to get the slope happen naturally. Or you can go to mechanical solutions and use a pump. Now you're pumping up. And most folks certainly think long and hard about going that route. It's not always the best idea. But if you really have to have that 10-foot deep basement to accommodate your golf simulator, then I guess you got to do what you got to do. Alrighty. So, next thing to look at is the garage elevation and the garage landing. So, once again, we'll take a look at the plot plan. Here is kind of our garage. They've got it going on here, and we know the garage comes in at 84.4, and the garage floor is pretty well flat. And we know as well that the finished floor is 85.2. It's probably going to be 4 steps in the garage to get us up, just like we had 4 steps kind of at the front door. So you park your car in the garage, and then you would have to walk up about 4 steps to get to the door. So if we take a look at this drawing on the main floor here, which is right here, here we go. So let's have a look at this. Here's our garage. Whoops. And it's kind of a big, elongated garage. And we've got 1, 2, I guess we've got 3 steps drawn here. So, and it's a neat scenario because you got a tandem garage. So you got a car, another car could go there, and your little sports car could be parked up here, or maybe your little workshop space is up here, and you got steps up to the garage. So it's a tight space. We don't have room for much of a landing if we draw it this way, but at least it does work. Alrighty, back we go. Basement window design and height. Can we enlarge them? So in this case, this point isn't going to be that crucial because it's a walkout. So we know the ground is going downhill towards the back. Honestly, we're going to have room for lots of basement window capacity. So let's see what we actually ended up coming up with. If we just cruise back to the foundation drawing again, which happens to be here. Here we go. We've got lots of windows, and this particular home has a very cool sunken patio. And no basement windows on this flank because there's full-size windows at the back. And if we take a close look at the drawing, we're going to see that those windows are drawn on there. The guys will have given us a size. Here we go. Oops. 3 foot by 6 foot. Yeah, 6 foot tall windows, 3 feet wide. So that's pretty decent. That is pretty decent. And a flat lot, this particular point might give you the opportunity to just take a close look if you've got windows in the basement, how large or how small they really are. Can you make them bigger? If you dug them down into deep window wells, you'd be studying that kind of option. Our basement windows drawn as inset. This is a subtle detail that good builders will look at. So what happens here is that if you just have a flat concrete wall and then you put a basement window on top of that, screw it in, the flange is then on the outside of the concrete, and you're relying on things like caulking and so on to help waterproof that window assembly, and that may not last as long as you would like. A far better way to do it is, because the concrete wall, basement walls are thick, you got a big thick opening there, set the basement window inside, inset into the concrete wall. Now it's partly covered, and you'll have a much better time waterproofing that detail. Adjacent grades. Have a look at the adjacent grades. So what does that mean? That is all about, that relates to what is the neighbor doing? Are you in a vast valley and the two houses next to you are draining onto you? Shouldn't happen, but it's good to have an awareness of that. In this case, not a problem. We know that we have actually a walkway next to us, and it's clear that walkway is lower than we are. Beauty, that's great. And there's a neighboring lot beside us. We don't know a lot about that lot from this scenario, but we do see that we are draining that way towards that lot. He's probably draining that way, and so there's probably what's called a swale, which is a channel. Can be very subtle, can be even hard to see with the naked eye, but there's a channel there, and it's allowing water to flow, in this case out towards the street. So I think we're cool here, and we should be. In the case of a master plan neighborhood with a professional land developer, this should be looked after really well. Where you'll have more trouble is on an old lot. You're knocking down a house that's 50 years old, all the neighbors are 50 years old. Honestly, it can be a gong show how the water flows, and the plot plan may not even catch because there's no design there. It just happened. Someone's grandpa built a house, somebody else's grandpa built another house. They didn't really plan it, and water goes willy-nilly. That's usually a bad scene, but it's always good to understand that ahead of time before you get too far into it. Okay, next one. We've got, how do roadway grades compare to final lot grades? Blah, blah, blah. what are we going on about here? Well, what this relates to is the driveway slope. People who are on social media have seen hilarious examples of builders who didn't pay attention to this, and their driveways are like, honestly, climbing the Matterhorn. Okay, here we've already looked at this briefly. We know we have 18 inches of rise here. That's something. It's not a killer, so I think it's going to be fine. But so I think we're fine with this, but it's good to at least be like mentally aware of that. Okay, let's see. Are the driveway and sidewalk indicated correctly? Danger. Danger, danger, Will Robinson. So, here they kind of weren't. So one of my team has overlaid in red what we're looking for here. And now it's set up right. It's a pretty complex one with a driveway, a human sidewalk here. There's going to be planting in here to the front step, and another human sidewalk that gets you out and around towards the back, and there's activity back there. So it's now drawn right. It's something to look at because your builder is probably going to issue a purchase order to somebody who's going to do the driveway, and that somebody is going to get a purchase order, and this plot plan is going to be attached to it, and he's going to be like, okay, here's what we want, and on the day of, plot plan in hand, his crew will roll up to site, 3 pickup trucks and 9 guys, and they will make what they see. So if you don't make it clear to them now, it's going to be awkward later. So this is your big chance to do that. Okay, we've got, in case of rear detached garages, doesn't really apply to us. Will the garage be higher than the rear lane? You definitely don't want your garage to be sunken below the back alley if you can help it. Again, the plot plan would answer that question for you. It's something to look at. Window wells. What is this? This one is interesting. So this can happen. Let's say you've got a house and you have a side door going into your side yard on the main floor, and it's just worth checking. Hey, in the basement, is there a window below this? Have we accidentally put a side door above a window? It definitely has happened. If this note wasn't here, but the reason this note is here is probably like somewhere in the last 20 years that did happen to us. So now we're going to catch it. So we always look, okay, where's that basement window? Is there a side door above it? What's happening there? There's many ways to deal with it once you know it's happening, but you're just checking for that. Potential retaining walls. Ooh, retaining walls. Back to the plot plan. Well, there is a sunken patio here, so that's interesting. Otherwise, we're not seeing too many notes from the survey related to retaining walls. And if we look at the actual foundation drawings on this scenario, and again, this is a pretty unusual house because of the big patio, but again, we don't see too much going on except right here. What's this all about? So here, this is the front of the house, right there, and here you are cruising around, and remember we're going down to what is really a walkout basement, and so what's happening here is a bunch of steps going down, which is convenient for people to walk, and you get to this cool sunken patio. So depending on how this goes, this patio might need a bit of retaining structure here, and that's something that's going to have to be defined, but it doesn't really say this on this page. I'm just going to check and just see it now. I'm curious. Now it shows the patio. It doesn't really say much about retaining wall there. Go back to the plot plan, and yeah, not a detailed description of that. So this could be something that's a flag. Now I'm thinking about this. This house is a few years old. We did resolve this, but just looking at this, I don't see as much detail about retaining wall as I'd like. Maybe I didn't grab the final plot plan out of the group here, but there is a kind of a warning note here, but it's not specified in detail on here, so that's interesting. Very good subject to take a close look at. Okay, let's keep rolling. Location of services coming into the lot. So here where we build, power and gas are generally on opposite sides of the lot, unless we're doing what's called common trenching, and that's become more and more popular where power and gas are in the same trench. Not always available. And the gas meter, in our neighborhoods, we want to have our gas meter 4 meters from the front of the garage. So if we look at our little plan again and try to find some details about that. This is not the drawing where I'd see that. Let's try this. Here we go. Not this one either. Electric drawing. Here we go. Main floor. Could be some clues here. Looks like we have an air conditioner drawn there. And, here we go. Gas meters here. In this case, electrical meters here because we are doing the gas supply and the power in the same trench. So they're drawn there. Now, the reason why we want to have this on the drawings is so that the builders know and can set things up. So, for example, in this case, we would probably have a bit of blocking so that those meters can be hung well from the blocking that's been provided. So easy for the framer to do that during framing. Horribly awkward to do it afterwards, belatedly. So we try and get these things done early on. And so here's information for everybody that, hey, right there, that's where the blocking is going to be needed for those meter locations. And now we know. Simple as that. Easy stuff. Easy if you catch it now. So then we have a question about, do we have enough power service appropriate for the load on the home? So that's kind of neat. So if we go back to our drawing, and I think in this case the panel is in the basement. Bear with me because I might actually electrical panels down there. Okay, that's good to know. We may have to look at the order for the house because here it's not defining how big it is. But in addition to a set of house plans, you'll also have a kind of a specification order that lays out what's going in your house. And so it'll tell you how many amp service you've got. Again, Grandpa's house probably had a 60 amp service because he's just plugging in a toaster. And then for the longest time, 100 amp was a residential standard. And still is in some locations, smaller houses. A bigger home like this, that may not be enough. So pretty sure we have 200 amps here. The reason for that is it's a bigger house, we have air conditioning, we got other features that need more power. And as we move into electric vehicles, having a little more amperage is probably also going to be useful if you've got a charging bay in your garage for your electric car. So, okay, again, just something to like think about. I've done this with folks, and then somebody will pop up and like, hey, I have this hobby of doing welding, and so I've got a welder. So, like, okay, that's fine. We can set that up, but we got to make sure we have enough power so that you're not knocking out breakers when you start welding. Alrighty. So, now a couple little things about the power meter. We've already looked at the location, but just so people know, you can't have a power meter, within 3 feet of an opening window. In our locale, it's got to be X number of feet above grade. And that's so the guys, when they go to read the meter, don't have to climb on ladders, or it's convenient for them. And I guess it's almost an antiquated rule now because it's almost always done remotely, but in the event they had to. And the power panel itself has to be within 10 feet of the meter, or you have to take special measures. Like a disconnect, special disconnect on the outside of the house. Sometimes the way your layout of your home is, your power panel has to be more than 10 feet away from your meter. That's okay, but you need to know now because you need to allow for a disconnect so that you can shut the power off, because you got a long line between the meter and your power panel, and there's a danger point there. This gives you another opportunity to turn the power off in a case like that. Here's a very subtle one. If you're doing a barrier-free grade level home, if you're using frost-free hose bibs, you have to locate them not on a rim joist where the hose bibs will stick and be visible inside your house. So we try to then locate them inside an interior wall. Power panel and power meter can be 10 feet apart. That's a duplicate note. Anyway. The city connection and any street hardware that may be present. Let's have a look at this. Again, it's good to know if we have the data, what's going on there. So I don't see much happening here. You can see the power here, that's nice. If we look at these symbols, CC location, city connection is right there on that corner. So that's kind of where they're going to attach to it and run the water to the house. Not over here, it's over here, that's where it is. Okay, so now you got awareness. So again, the guy doing that work will be looking at this plot plan specifically to find this thing, and it'll help him a lot. So that's pretty clear. Okay, street furniture looks like we're clear. We might see something like a transformer or a street light or a fire hydrant, and if they were there, they would show. So it's good again to be aware of those. Sometimes you might be building in a brand new location where those aren't even installed yet. So again, this tells you in advance what the plan is. Nobody's going to be surprised that there's a fire hydrant. And so I've got this cute little sidewalk happening. If there was a fire hydrant, which there isn't, but if there was, I'd know and I would respond accordingly, right? So knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. When you're empowered, you can do so much better. So with all this in mind, reposition, reorientate the house on lot if desired or possible. So now that we know a few things, we can make some decisions. So maybe you've got this 18-inch slope up here is just a real bugger for you, and so one thing you could do is back the house up. If you back it up a few feet, if that was possible, back it up, back it up, back it up. That would reduce the intensity of this slope. Maybe your kids are skaters and they need more slope because you're doing ramps and they're going to be whipped. So then you might actually move the house forward, make the driveway steeper. Maybe that's part of your plan. So, or maybe you think you want to go sideways. So maybe you just know this is going to be too tight. You want to put some trees here and you want to take the whole house and shove it over to the right. Shove it over, shove. So all these things are looked at now. So heaven forbid you don't want to do it when we're building. So this is your moment to decide that. Should I want to go forward? Do I want to go backwards? Is there some limits? Is there some limits to how far back and forth we can go? Yes. Your city will have a bylaw, and you've got to be within X feet or no closer than X to the side or to the back. So there's limitations, and that'll show on here. That data is also, something that is available for everybody to understand. In this case, I think we're going to leave it right where it is, so that's good. Cantilevers. A cantilever is a section on an upper floor that hangs out in space, usually only a couple feet. And there's lots of reasons why we do those. I don't think we have any in this particular plan. In fact, I'm pretty sure we don't. So, except on the second floor. Aha! I guess where the first floor hangs over the basement, sorry to be more precise. So I can see this little shaded area going on here. So what is that all about? Yep, there it is. That is a big cantilever that we daringly did. There's things in there I didn't really like. But anyway, there it is. So good to know it's there. That's part of the house that's hanging out in space. The engineers will make it strong enough. That's fine. And in this case, it's at the back, so really not a big deal from a zoning perspective. If it was on the side of the house, we'd have to make sure we weren't too close. There's going to be some rules about that. But I think here we're okay. So, okay, we got this cantilevered space. Driveway size. This relates to being cautious as a builder to make sure we don't order enough concrete. So we know how big the driveway is, blah, blah, blah. It's just kind of a warning. Somebody should do a calculation. of how big the driveway is. The plot plan can have it, not always. In this case, I think we've played with it anyway, so our concrete quantity is going to have to be worked on from this. But and you know what? Sometimes there's rules about how big the driveway can be. So here they've got it at 44.6 meters squared, somewhere around 500 square feet. So that's what that is. They also have data here about how big the house area is, how big the lot is, what's called site coverage. So in any neighborhood, you're allowed to have a house of X compared to the size of the lot, and not bigger. And this is called the McMansion provision. We don't want to have these gargantuan houses that overcrowd the lots in some cases. Now, that depends on the flavor of the moment, because sometimes we do. Sometimes we want to increase density, which is the current flavor, and so maybe having a bigger house is all right, because let's densify. Let's pack as much house as we possibly can. So anyway, it's all changes, but at this moment in time, site coverage was aiming at having a more relaxed spread between the houses, and so that always gets checked. And here we're cool. It's all good here. All good. So verify for frost coverage. So this is a northern thing. You won't have this problem in Texas, but it's definitely something we look at when we're building on the tundra. And we know how deep frost goes in our neighborhood. 6-8 feet, pretty common. 6 feet, very common. Climate change or not, frost goes down that far these days. So all we want to do is make sure that we have a foundation structure that goes below the frost. Otherwise, we're in trouble. So we might see clues about that in the drawings, and I realize this drawing set is 22 pages. By the way, if your builder is not producing 20 odd pages of drawings for your house, pay attention to that, because it's pretty hard to do. Here we go. Aha! So here's a cross section of the house. This is the back here, and what we're seeing here is this thing. So this is already the basement. Here's your main floor up here. Main floor. This is the floor you're walking on. Here's the basement, and because it's a walkout, this slope is going this way, this way, this way, this way. So here's the ground here, and frost will go down, and therefore we've got this foundation piece below, which is helping us mitigate against frost getting below that walkout basement. So that's great. Okay, so I think we got that covered off. We checked. Double check overall height of the main floor. It's almost a duplicate, making sure it fits the zoning. Sometimes my team would be like, hey, and at the same point we'll get on there twice, but better to be on there twice than to be on there not at all. Okay, so that is probably one of the hardest parts of the plan review, is to get through understanding the plot plan and those technical requirements. Now, easier stuff for any consumer to grab onto are all optional features from specs and selections and change orders to date reflected on the drawings correctly. Your builder will have his version of an order form, and it'll have a ton of stuff on it. It's probably quite a few pages. Actually, it better be. If it's a one-page quickie, this is not the builder for you. Trust me. Anyway, quite a few pages. So there'll be stuff on there like there's a fireplace in the basement, or your tub is a jet tub, or you've got hardwood floor in this bedroom and you've got tile floor in this craft room, point after point after point. Many of these should show on the drawings, and heaven forbid if something different shows on the drawings. You do not want that. So for example, if we back off here to our main floor sketch, here we go. We're just going to get ourselves back to the action, and something that's going to show stuff like this. Whoops, I go the wrong way. I did go the wrong way. Here we go. Perfect. So, here we go. Here's a great room. And it's got hardwood. Did you buy hardwood? Maybe you bought tile. If you bought tile, this is a problem. So it's got to be correct. If you leave it like this, accidents will happen. Trust me. So you just got to look at all that stuff. Yeah, it's a bit... Okay, here's a bathroom. Okay, looks like we're putting tile in here. Fine. Is that what you wanted? Maybe you wanted hardwood in the bathroom. That's fine too. Whatever you want, it's got to be there. And that applies to everything. This is showing a nice little secondary sink. Single sink here, double sink here. Did you buy a single sink? Maybe you bought another double. What is what you bought? It should show. It's got to show. So it's very important that this accurately show what is going on. Here's a walk-in closet with carpet. That's nice. You're probably in there in bare feet, so that's nice. But again, you want to be sure that that's... Maybe you wanted to take this tile and flow it through. This carpet could be wrong. So this is tedious, but you got to look at everything and you got to read everything. Now there are some things that as a consumer you're not always going to completely grasp, but carpet taught that you can grasp that. So you got to look at that. Your builder should be looking at this stuff. Flush engineered beam sized by supplier. Huh? So anyway, that is referring to a beam that is placed inside the truss system because it's just, as they say, flush. So that means some things for him in terms of the installation detail up there. It means some things for him in terms of how this wall is going to be, and easy stuff to deal with once you know it's there. So that's that one. So that point, optional features for specs and selections. I don't know. That could take you 20 minutes, but you got to read everything you ordered and just make doggone sure it somehow gets reflected on that drawing. And related to that, compare original sales contract sketch against these drawings. So, just a way to do it. So when you kind of wrote your deal or ordered your house, you probably didn't have full blueprints at that moment. You more likely had a sketch or a builder's stock plan that you made a lot of notes on. Stock plan, call it the Windsor plan. And on the Windsor, you have made some notes in red. Oh yeah, I put a fireplace here, and we're going to put another window here. We're doing. So you want to make sure all those red line notes have shown up on what are now the blueprints. And the only way to do it is to do it. So you got to look at each red line note on your sales sketch and compare with what you got on the prelim working drawings or blueprint drawings. Having done this hundreds of times, often there's something that didn't show up or is not quite the way you thought. So the only way to check that is to check it. The builder will also have what they call their standard specification, and that could be any number of things. From they might, in their standard specification, they might reference the type of railing at their stairs, or they might reference something like their sort of window sizes. All these things should also show on the drawing, unless you've already changed them. Maybe you changed from this railing to that railing, blah blah blah, but you want to be sure that anything that is on their standard spec also shows on the drawings. And here's something that caught us once or twice. Do the drawings show the correct model number for the front exterior door and the overhead door? Especially in terms of the size and so on, you want to always review that. And you probably have a secondary document that you and the builder's designer have done. They might call it the interior selections page or interior finish chart. Not all of these items will show on the blueprints, but some of them will. Flooring usually will. You might have selected a particular kitchen faucet. That won't show on the drawings, really. But many other things will. Maybe you and the designer came up with a cool pattern for the tile in the shower that might show on these drawings depending how sophisticated your builder is. So again, all those question marks to be sure that when the final set goes to the build team, they have an accurate thing that doesn't have any mistakes on it. Okay. Oh, detail drawings. So this happens too. So things have to be detailed, and what that means is a great example is your fireplace mantle, or your closets, or any built-ins. There should be something in the drawing that reflects those and looks like those. And again, if your builder has a good level of sophistication, he will have a nice set of drawings for the fireplace mantle and a nice set of drawings for the closets, so that the build team is not in the dark that day and understand what they're supposed to be doing. Exterior review, preliminary architectural comments from the Architectural Guideline Authority. This applies if you're in one of those neighborhoods that is controlled by a developer and there's architectural guidelines. Okay, guidelines are something we all have to live with in those neighborhoods, and so the builder should have already submitted your concept to the architectural guideline people for feedback, and they'll come back with whatever. It'll be like, hey, we don't like the color, or hey, we got to change these windows. Hey, the roof is this and that. So this is the stage of the game where the builder will show that to you, and you guys will have to modify. So that's that one. Again, you want to be getting this done on paper and not doing it after when you're trying to build a house. It's also a good moment now to look at the house overall. Is it attractive and well proportioned? Again, it's kind of your last chance to do stuff, so you may as well kind of try to catch it if you can, if there's something that you don't like. Now, if you're working off a sketch, this may be the first time you've really got a chance to actually see the place, and so, you know, kind of like all four sides of it and so on. So those first couple pages of the drawings are going to start to show you, what this is going to look like. In this case, it's a pretty cool modern styled house with a fair bit of character. Just some neat feeling stuff going on. And we're not going to change anything because we like it. But this would be the moment to like, hey, maybe this overhead door is not the kind we want, or maybe I don't want to have stone on this column. Maybe I want some stone here. Numerous choices that person can make, and this is kind of your last kick at the cat for that. Try to improve how this is going to look. So that's great. Detailing of overhead door jambs, labeling of trims, fine. Very subtle stuff, walkout basement, preserved wood nailer, moisture control mechanism. In the world of moisture control, that's keeping houses dry. There's things, sort of best practice things that we can look at, such as roof overhangs. In general, they're good for a house. Some styles, they may not look the way you want, but they are always good for keeping the rain off. Where are the downspouts? Are they on the plan? Do we know where downspouts are going? Yeah. And look at the subtlety here. In case of walkout deck, add a note to plan regarding strapping under walkout decks, because if we're using aluminum soffit below the deck, it gives you a lot more choices if you have strapping instead of just banging the soffit onto the deck joists. So very subtle thing that a high-end builder will always look at. Is the sump pump on the same side as a storm sewer? Again, that's a technical thing for your builder, but it just gives them way more flexibility in terms of controlling how the water is flowing below the house. Should we add a garage floor drain? Just a question mark. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Now's your chance. Beam pocket sizes, garage overhead door height and width are set up correctly. The framer needs to know these things. They should show on the drawings so that you can get it done right the first time. Getting things right the first time is a big deal. So if we look at this foundation plan, it's showing what we want to do in terms of cutting the foundation for the overhead doors. It's labeled correctly, so that looks good. Are there pilings if needed under the sidewalk and the front steps? Again, this is just the way a good builder will try and do stuff if necessary. And here in this big garage we have some pilings under this slab, so that is great. Nice and tidy. Walkout basement step footings, talked about that already. Garage stairs and landing, garage attic hatch if necessary, closet details, windows. Here's something, windows. Where do they open? People like windows to open. If you look at a window, we go to the main floor, let's say around here. And just have a quick look at what we got here. This window is a P. It's a picture window, doesn't open. This window is a P. It's a picture window, doesn't open. This window is a C. It's a casement window, so it's a crank style window and that opens. So maybe that's what you want, or maybe you would rather have your casement window over here. That's a choice you can make. So this is your time to just confirm which windows will open, which windows will not open. You just got to look at the ball and kind of make sense of what's going on there. Towel bar locations. Ensure that 10 mil shower doors are not connected to walls with pocket doors. That's because it's hard to screw things in when you got a pocket door cavity behind. Very subtle but useful. Stair system, railing locations, are they accurate? Are the post locations accurate? So you need to look at all the railing, make sure that makes sense. You do the flooring cuts, we kind of talked about that already. Telepost locations on the foundation plan. Do they match locations as shown on the finished basement? Where are those posts in the basement? We'll have a look at where they are. We try to hide them inside walls. Are there drop beams? There might be, depending on how the engineer did his thing. When we checked this plan, we saw they were mostly flush, which is nice. Flush beam is in the ceiling, does not drop down. Cabinet layouts. So by this time, you probably already have drawings from the cabinet provider, and you want to make sure they match this. So for example, in this scenario, what we've got going on here, and you'll recall this because we did take a quick look at this already. Here we go. This island has a sink on this drawing. Does the cabinet guy's drawing also show this? This kitchen has a fridge over here and a range there. Does the cabinet guy's drawing also show this? If it doesn't, let's fix it, because we want these to be consistent. It's just that simple. Here we got two sinks in the bathroom vanity. Does the cabinet guy's drawing also show two sinks in the vanity? Or did you decide with him to just go one sink and a big set of drawers? That's fine, but this should match. Things have to match. This is where your OCD has to come in and just take over. Make things really, really accurate. Tub types need to be specified on the plan. If they're a jetted tub or a non-jetted tub, that should be clear. Check space between tubs and casings doors. So here's a subtle one. So, okay. Oops, I'm going to go to here now. Back to the drawings, the actual drawings of the house. And if we look at things like, here's a big tub. Big tub. Here's a door. So between this door and the tub, there's a space. Eyeballing it, I can see it's going to be fine. But if this door was really tight to the tub, you need to be aware of that. What does that mean? Oh, it means the door might back into the tub. There's ways of dealing with that, but it's good to be aware. It also means that the finished carpenter may have a hard time putting casing around this door because the tub's smack in the way. Again, there's always ways to deal with it, as long as you know what's going on. So that's what that's all about. Just another thing to check. Checking. Saves the day. Fireplace venting. Is a rooftop chase required? Probably not in this case because I think the fireplaces are gas and they're going to vent right out the back. So that's cool. Analyze if steel studs could work. In some situations we like to use steel studs. They can be really straight. Don't always work for other reasons, but they can. Your heating contractor should have already given you some feedback on layouts, and if it's a forced air heating system, he will be looking at what's his pathway to get ducting from point A to point B. So this is his moment to kick in, talk to you about that. You see how this house is really being planned. Like we are planning. It's not just random. Anyway, check the width of the stairs to the basement. There's building code minimums. The drafting guy should have caught this. But you might have the grand piano that's going down there. Who knows what you've got? Is the size okay for you? So this is your chance to check that stuff. If you have a pocket door somewhere, let's make that wall 2x6. Please, let's make it a 2x6 wall. If it's 2x4, it's just going to be a little tougher for everybody. Section drawings, we're looking at your ceiling heights. Maybe you thought you were getting a 12-foot ceiling in your bedroom, and well, it's going to be on the section drawing. So, and most often, section drawings are somewhere near the back. So just work our way towards the back. Page 8, page 9, page up. Here's something. Here we go. Oh, back to page 10. Our section drawing is telling us we've got a 10-foot ceiling. If that's what you ordered, great. If you thought you were getting 12, we got a problem, right? This is your chance to check that stuff. So, details. Kind of covered this again, just to be sure we're looking at the fireplace detail. If there's little benches and cubbies and oddball things, they should be on the drawing somewhere. That is important. And then we get to electrical. Electrical is huge. You can spend a lot of time on electrical. In general, somebody needs to make sure that the electrical that's drawn on the plan meets code, and that it follows any choices that you've made. Maybe you bought 65 pot lights for this hallway. Okay, they should show on the drawing now. Someone needs to have that stuff drawn. Because if you bought them and they're not on the drawing, they probably won't get in the house. So this is your chance. Little subtle things. Codes change. We had to have plugs on islands. We had notes about that, so we didn't miss it. Network wiring, if you're doing it. Less of a big deal now because most stuff is wireless, so this has gotten more simple than it used to be. But hey, maybe you got a TV you want to hang on the wall. Okay, is there a plug behind it? What's the height going to be? Don't leave things to chance. Let's lay out that height accurately ahead of time. Just something to think about. So simple. Maybe you've got modems and you've got some other network gear, and you're putting it somewhere in maybe in the furnace room, and let's get a shelf there. Let's get something to put this stuff on. You're not going to put it on the floor. Easy stuff. Do we have measurements for the light fixtures? Now you might fine tune this during the build, and that is okay. But on the other hand, it doesn't hurt to take a stab. Whoops, here we go. To take a stab at putting this on the drawing to some extent. So here we have a great room, and we got some pot lights, and oh look, there's your spacing. There's the spacing. So the electrician on his own can get it right. He's 4'6" off this wall, he's 5'6" off this wall, he's got a spacing of 6'9" between, and that's going to look great. That's going to look just great. Here's pot lights, or pardon me, pendant lights over this island. There's space at 3.7. Now everybody knows that's where they are. And so these little details can make or break a house. And when you make that effort, look, they're all 3'7". Isn't that interesting? So it's good to have that clarified ahead of time, if at all possible. 3-ways are logical. 3-way switches, alarm keypads are on the plan somewhere. Your vacuum outlets are on the plan. If you got speakers, they're on there. All this kind of stuff is here, so that we really know. What color is the house on the outside? And just to make sure it's there, this is the moment where we take a look at, what is the color of your siding or your stone or whatever you're doing on the house, and we actually got it right. We didn't just say, hey, it's gray. No. It's battleship gray from such and such supplier, model, blah, 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 and then we now know exactly what it is, Name and a code. We don't just say match to this or match to that. It's always got a paint name. It's always got a code. There you go. Folks, that took me about an hour, spinning along quickly in a live session with a customer, just a ton of back and forth, and we will often hit a couple hours, but it's probably the best couple hours you'll ever spend getting your house to turn out right. And so hopefully this encourages you just to buy your own copy of this checklist. Even if you're not an expert, you now have a lot more knowledge than you did before. For $10, you can get some good information for yourself when you're building your house. And again, if you're interested in having me go through your plans for you, as a guy in the background, just kicking out comments based on having built many hundreds of homes, we can do that for you. Thank you for your time.